Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. It's Tracy here, and this is a tutorial for my new hat. It's the first hat I've actually made on my YouTube channel, although I've made a zillion hats in my time, but for some reason I'd never made one before, only a baby hat. So I'm going to show you how I made this one. It's quite a plain sort of beanie, really, because the yarn is the star. I always say, if it's a plain yarn, you need a good stitch. But if it's a pretty yarn, then that's the star. The stitch should really be plain. So I finished it off with these curly whirlies. And I'm going to do a separate tutorial for the curly whirlies, because that way, if you wanted to make those for a different project, you haven't got to go searching for it. Excuse me while this very slow vehicle goes by. So you don't have to go searching for it. There'll be a separate one. And likewise, if you wanted to just put a pom-pom on it, you could, or anything at all, or just leave it blank. So I'm going to show you the yarn that I used for this. It is one that's in my shop, Hobby Rocks, which is www.hobbyrocks.co.uk. It's Stylecraft Aran, and this is absolutely my favourite colour. This one is called Berry. So that's hence the name of my beanie. Although it doesn't take a whole ball. Now this is 100 grams, and I had this much left over, even making the curly whirlies. So I wouldn't say it was half, that you'd get two out of it, but it's very near to being half. So I made it with 4 of these curly whirlies on top. Let's just move that out of the way. And I did one in a different colour just to show you, and I put 5 curly whirlies on the top of this one. Now I really like this colour as well, and again, even though I did another extra curly whirly, I still had half the ball left. So I just wanted to see what it looked like in this yarn, because I absolutely love this yarn. I can't remember the name of the colour, but I do have it as well in my shop, and also this one, which is the one I'm going to use today to show you the tutorial. I'm hoping it shows up really well. This one's called Dusk, 3757 Dusk. I can't really tell you about the rainbowy one. I threw the yarn band away. But this one, as I said, is called Berry. Okay, let me tell you, does it give you the dimensions? It's hard to see it on these. There we are. It's 240 meters, 262 yards, and it's an Aran 4 weight. It does have some wool content, but although I'm quite sensitive to wool, I didn't find it irritated me at all. So I'm going to put that one aside, and my 2 hats and the 2 remainder balls, and I'm going to clear all this stuff out of the way. So I'm going to pause it for a second. In the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when new videos pop up. So I'm just going to clear all these bits and pieces away and get ready to start, and I'll come straight back to you. Okay, ready to begin. So you're going to need a darning needle, although there are only 2 ends to sew in. Well, unless you make all those curly whirlies, of course, and that's a different matter. But for the actual hat, and this is the tutorial specifically for the hat, and as I say, the other one will be a separate one. I will also do both a right-handed and a left-handed version, and there'll be a link at the beginning of each video which will point you in the direction of the one you need. So this, you will also need a little pair of scissors, and these are the cute guitar scissors that I got on my website as well recently. Now I'm going to use a soft touch hook, the Amore soft touch, because I've been using recently the tulip reds, which have become my favourite, and I also stock those in my shop, but because they're red, I don't think that it will show the stitches too well. I know this is probably not red yarn, but there are lots of colours, so I wanted one that would really kind of highlight it. So we're going to use this one because it's gold. Now you can either make this with a magic loop, magic ring, whatever you want to call it, or you can use a chain to start. Now I'm going to use a chain to start, and the reason for that is because I want a small hole to get my my bits and pieces into. You don't see the hole once it's all attached, because all of these disappear into it, and then you kind of secure them and sew them in. So I think it would be a little bit difficult to see with a magic ring, so I'm going to go for a chain start. But I don't want a massive hole, so you just need to make a slip knot. You can do that however you normally do, and I'm going to chain 4. And then I'm going to make a ring by slip stitching into the first of those chains. Okay, so I'm going to chain 2. Now, normally speaking, when I make a circle of any kind, let's just go down a little bit. When I make a circle of any kind, these 2 start as my first stitch, but in this particular hat, they don't, and I'll show you why. When you're making a hat, sometimes if you do that, you will get kind of a gap that goes all the way up your hat. Now, you do get a little bit of a wider kind of rib just at one point at the back. It's the only way you know you've got the back and not the front. But that's all there is. So that's why these particular turning chains don't actually count. Let me just move my hat out of the way. So in this ring, we're going to do 10 UK trebles or US double crochet. So that's just a simple yarn over into the center of the ring. I'm going to work over my tail, yarn over, so you've got your 3 loops on the hook, and then you yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that is a UK treble crochet or a US double. So I'm going to do 10. That's my first one. The 2 chain don't count, so I'm going to carry on and do my 10. Now, I'm not going to count while you're counting, because that can be really off-putting. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll come straight back to you once I've completed my 10 stitches. Okay, so I've made 10. So if you count your stitches, you will have 10 or 11, including this one, to count. So, but this isn't a stitch, remember. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now we're going to just completely ignore these, and this is our first stitch here that we want to work into. I'm just going to zoom it so I can show you, because it is kind of mulberry coloured yarn. Okay, so there are our 2 chains, and we're going to go into this stitch here, and we're going to slip stitch into that one, and that's our ring. So we're going to do our 2 chain, which doesn't count, remember, and in every stitch around, so every single, there's our first, our second, our third, we're going to make 2 UK trebles or US doubles in every single stitch around. Hopefully, because I'm zoomed quite away, I'm not going off camera. Okay, so we're going to go in every single one and do an increase. So you'll have 20 stitches, not including those 2 chains as we get around. So I'm going to pause it and I'll come back to you when I get back to here. Okay, so I'm all the way around, and as before, I'm going to ignore those 2 turning chains. I've put the light on just so that you can see a little better, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my first actual stitch. So what that does as you're working around is it fills that little gap that's usually between with our 2 chain. Okay, so again, we're going to chain 2, and what we're going to do now is do an increase and 1 on its own. So in the first stitch, I'm going to do a 1 on its own. So this doesn't count, remember. So we're doing 1 stitch, and in our next stitch here, we're going to do 2. So we're now increasing on alternate stitches. Okay, so the next one will have 1, and then the next one will be an increase, and we're going to carry on like that all the way around until we get back to our start. Now, because our first one, remember we're ignoring these turning chains, because our first one was 1 on its own, this stitch will be an increase. So I'm going to go all the way around doing that. So 2 in that stitch, 1 in the next, 2 in, 1 in the next, 2 in that one, 1 in the next, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to the start. Okay, so I've got all the way around, and you'll notice it does bow a little bit, which is fine because obviously we don't want the top of our head to be flat anyway, and so it will kind of dome just a little bit. And I think this is really pretty, this yarn. I love this colour. What did I say this one was called? Dusk. I think these colours are working up really well. So anyway, we're going to ignore our 2 chain again, and we're just going to slip stitch into the first actual stitch. Okay, we're going to chain 2 again. Now this time we're going to do our first increase in this first stitch. It will look bunched up because of this, but never mind, it works out. So we're going to do an increase in the very next stitch, and then we are going to do on their own in the next two stitches. We're going to do 1 on its own. So 1 in this one and 1 in this one. So we're now increasing every 3rd stitch. So the next one will be an increase, and then we'll do 2 on their own. And that is our repeat for this round. And the reason I stagger it, so that the first stitch in the previous round was a single, the first stitch in this round is an increase, and the first stitch in the next will be a single. I do that because otherwise it takes on a bit of a hexagon shape rather than a circle. But by staggering the increase at the beginning, or not at the beginning of the sequence, you stop that hexagon shape appearing. Okay, so I just thought I'd explain that. So now I'm going to do 2 on their own, and then I'm going to do my increase, 2 on their own and an increase, and I'm going to go all the way around. And because we started with an increase, we'll finish with 2 single ones. And I'm going to pause it then and catch up with you when we get back to the start again. Okay, so I've made it all the way around. My last 2 were the singles, so now I'm going to ignore those again and just slip stitch into my first proper stitch. Okay, all the way back round again. Now I'm going to chain 2. Now because this one was the increase, it's going to be a single, and we're going to do 3 on their own. So in the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, we're going to do 1, and then we're going to do our increase in the next stitch. If I go too fast for you, just pause me. I get a bit carried away sometimes and forget to slow down. So now I'm going to do 3 on their own. And then we're going to increase in the next stitch, and that is the repeat all the way around until we get back to the beginning. And as we started on a single, we will end on an increase. So I'm going to carry on and meet up with you when we get back to the start again. Okay, so we're all the way back, ignoring our first 2, and slip stitch into our first proper stitch. Okay, so again, we're going to chain 2. We ended with our increase, so we're starting. So I'm going to do 2 in my first stitch. And then I'm going to do 1 in the next 4. So you kind of see a pattern. We started off with 1 in between our increases, then it was 2 in between our increases, then 3, and now we've got 4. I bet you can tell what's coming next. Okay, so now I'm going to do my increase, and then 4 stitches on their own. And we're going to carry on like that all the way around until we get back to the start. So I shall pause it and meet up with you when we get back here. Made it all the way around. I have to say, I love these colours. Don't those blues and this kind of mauve and magenta look lovely together? Absolutely lovely. Anyway, it's going to be my new favourite, I think. Going to slip stitch into the first real stitch again as before. Now this is our last increase row, and I don't know about you, but sometimes when I make beanies or when I see other people's patterns, they seem to be really long. I didn't want that for mine. I wanted it to finish kind of top of my forehead and not just be like, could pull it down over my face if I wanted to. So if you feel that it's not long enough for you, then the rounds after the increases stop. All you have to do is put in another couple if you've kind of, some of us got bigger heads than others. I'm not suggesting that you have a big head, but you know what I mean. Some of us like them to come right down and more of a slouchy kind of beanie and all that sort of thing. But this one fits my head perfectly. So if you want it snug and fit in your head, then you follow me. Otherwise, you can just add in a row or two and it'll make it a little bit longer. So this one, we started the previous round with an increase. So this is going to be a single one on its own in our first stitch. And we're going to do 5 on their own. So that's the second, 3, whoops, and that one is our 5th. And then after we've done 5 on their own, we're going to do our increase, and that's the repeat, 5 on their own and then an increase. I just love the colours in this yarn. It's just beautiful. Look at that blue. It's beautiful. Anyway, I'm going to pause it and I shall catch up with you again. Oh, it's gone dark. Isn't that lovely? When it gets back to the start. Okay, we're all the way round on our last increase row. Just going to slip stitch as before. And I'd finish that round on an increase. So this is how it's looking. Don't worry if it's puckering. Now we're going to start on the rows for the actual front part of our beanie. So 7 rows make up the, here we go, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds, should I say. 7 rounds make up our initial kind of crown part. So the first 7 rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this is where it will take you up. So this last part here, this is how we kind of get the length, and we're not doing any increase in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's actually 5 rows, because although this row looks like it's in the rib, this is the row we're starting to go into our stitches to make it. So we're going to do 5 rounds of just normal plain stitches, no increasing at all. So all we're going to do is 1 in each, so not forgetting our first stitch, because remember the 2 chain don't count. So it's very simple, just 1 in every single stitch around. And we're going to do that for about 5 rows. If you think that it's too long, too actually wide, then do 4. But I think we do need the 5. It just depends, I guess, on how big your head is. But if you feel like you need more, if you like your hats to be longer, then by all means do that. But I'm going to do 5. So I'm going to pause it now, and I'll come back to you when I have my 5 rows complete, because they are very simple, just 1 in each, joining with a slip stitch exactly as before. Okay, so it doesn't look finished, does it, by any stretch of the imagination? So now we have 12 rows, including our 7 with our increases and the side rows. So now we're going to start making the cuff, and the last row of the side that we've made will be incorporated into this. Now you can make your brim as wide or as shallow as you like. So if you have kind of miscalculated in the depth of your hat, you just can make an extra long brim, so that's no problem at all. And when you try it on, you'll see just how much it fits. So, okay, how do we do that? Right, let me just pull out some yarn because I need some. And I'll be with you. There we go. All right then, so we're going to carry on with our 2 chain that don't count as a stitch. Now what we need to do is our very next stitch, which is this one beneath, we're going to do a front post stitch. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go behind it and come up. So we've got the stitch on our hook, the whole stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull it through. So we have 3 on our hook, and we're going to carry on and do our UK treble or US double exactly the same as normal. So that was a front post. Now we're going to do a back post in the next one. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to come around the back and we're going to go around the stitch that way. We're going to yarn over and pull it through. Now that action can be a little tricky, so but once you get used to it, it'll be no problem at all. And then we're just going to finish our stitch. And that is our repeat. So in the next one, we're going to front post. So we're going to go behind the stitch like this. So the stitch is in front. That's why it's a front post. We're going to pull it through and we're going to finish our stitch. And then the next one was the back post. So the stitch is at the back and we're going to pull it through. Doesn't matter if you have to maneuver it. Oh, I've gone through the wrong part. That's why. If you have to maneuver it a little bit to get it through, but you'll soon get used to doing that. That's no problem at all. So it's front post, then back post, and that is the repeat all the way around. And just one after the other, all the way until we get back to the start. I'll show you again. Go through the stitch, out through the other side. So the stitch is at the back, and we yarn over and pull it up. And we're going to go front post, exactly the same. Okay, so that's it. That's our repeat. And you can see that the previous row becomes part of our brim because it is 2 rows that it affects. So I'm going to carry on doing a front post, then a back post, then a front post, then a back post. And I shall catch up with you when we get back to the start. Okay, so I'm almost back. So I just need to do my last stitch, but I wanted to show you because obviously we've got the 2 chain and I didn't want that to you know, confuse you. So we go in that one, we leave this, which is our chain, and we slip stitch straight away into the first of our stitches, just as we have done all the way around. So it does make the rib a little bit wider at that point, but that's the only sacrifice that we have to make. So we're going to chain 2, and this is our first front post, and you can just about see the back post one there. So we're going to, where we've got a front post stitch, we're going to do a front post into it, and where we've got a back post, we're going to do a back post into it, which will it's very easy. Once you get going, you just go behind this one. It might be a little bit trickier because less of it's showing, and then you go behind and pull your loop through. You soon get used to doing these, and then front post, and the back post is here, just tucked behind a little bit. Now I did, I think, 6 rounds. I always call them rows. 6 rounds of the brim, but you can stop whenever you feel that your ribbed band is wide enough, and you can try the hat on and see if you need to do more or less. But this is only our second row, and as you can see, it already looks like we've got 3. So it's just whatever you feel once you're done. Some people like a really wide rim, just pulling out some yarn, and some not necessarily. So it's just however, when you look at it, however it kind of pleases you, really. You can please yourself. So one thing I will say about this beanie is it really works up very, very fast, which is brilliant. So this one is a back post, and the next one front post, and then the back post. So we're just going to carry on front posting into our front posts and back posting into our back post, and we just do that for several rounds. I will come back to you when I get to the end of this round, just so that I can show you how to go over this part again. But after that, I will pause it and come back to you when it's finished. So I'll meet up with you at the beginning of this round, at the end, which is back at the beginning. You know what I mean. Okay, so here we are back at the start. So I've got my last back post stitch, and as you can see, it's nestled behind this bar. So we're going to do that last one. We're going to come round, go through there and pick that up. And now all we need to do is ignore this and go straight into our first proper stitch. Okay, ready to start our next row of ribbon. Okay, so I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to carry on, and I'll come back to you once my brim is finished. Okay, so I think my band is actually wide enough, so I'm just going to slip stitch into, there's my chain, there's my first proper stitch, slip stitch into there, grab my scissors. I'm going to leave a nice long tail to sew in. I'm going to do one chain, cinch it down and pull it through, and that's how I end off. So now need to decide, really, like with my other beanies that I've made, I did these little curly whirlies. Now these ones are slightly, I've just dropped the other one on the floor, hang on a sec guys. These ones are slightly shorter, not a lot, but I made these ones just a little bit longer. It doesn't make a great deal of difference because they spiral. So I'm going to do a separate tutorial, as I said, for these. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when that little video pops up. Well, hopefully you will. So for this particular one, you can use curly whirlies, pom-poms, anything you want, or you can leave it plain. So if you're going to leave it plain, like we turn our hat inside out, and we'll get our little darning needle. And with this one, if you're going to leave it plain, you can, as you have worked over your tail, just pull that and cinch it completely closed, and then we can sew it shut. So this one I'm going to leave plain. Okay, so we just thread all that up. Now to keep it closed, I didn't leave a very long tail, which was kind of a bit naughty of me because I usually do. I might have to do this in a couple of parts. I think I might. No, maybe not. We'll see. I'll pull it out anyway. So then I'm just going to put that end through there and pull it into a knot. Now I'm going to sew that in. So because I haven't left a particularly long tail, I'm just going to put my needle through this center piece of all of the stitches, and then I'll threadle it up again. I'm not very good at this needle threading thing. I see other people, they just push it in and the whole lot goes through. Mine always splits through just to annoy me. So that can go around that way. And then if you want just to be extra secure, you can go through the other half. Normally I leave a much longer tail so that, you know, I can just do it in one, which is much simpler. Okay, so there we are. I'll just pull that through there and we can get our scissors and cut that off. That shouldn't come out. So now when we turn that in the right way, we've got a nice closed up end. So if you know you're not putting a pom-pom or anything like that, you can make a magic ring, magic loop, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to leave this brim slightly inside out. This has got a lovely super long tail, if you can see. And I'm just going to end by sewing this in. See what I mean? Splits for me. Other people, no problem at all. So I'm going to weave it along here a little way until I get to this vertical kind of, this is the inside of my hat. And I'm going to go down this spine by just sewing it in. You know, this goes an awful lot more simpler when I'm not on camera, right? It's always the way. So just go down the whole thing. Normally it does. Okay, don't then. We'll go bit by bit. Just wants to annoy me. It's because, oh, sorry, knocked the camera. Doing really well here, aren't I not? Okay, so we go down. And then I'm going to turn and go back up the other way. Just, there you go, that's how it works. See, it works sometimes for me. There we go, just snug into that little bit there. And then cut that off. Turn it back into the right way. And the only bit that looks like you've got a telltale sign of where that is this extra wide bit here. Sometimes it's not quite as bad as that. Like this one's doesn't seem quite as wide, but this one's even less. There it is, even less. But you could, if you wanted to, use your darning needle and just sew that a little closer if it bothered you, but it really doesn't bother me to that extent. With this one, it was hardly noticeable where that was. So that's it. That's how to make the hat, the beanie on its own. Thought I'd drop my darning needle then, but I didn't. And I really like this one. This has become one of my favourites now. All these colours are just gorgeous. At one point throughout this, there it is, there's this little rainbow part that when you're crocheting, you get all those colours together. And it happened a few times when I was going around this beanie, and I'd get to that point and there was these beautiful little rainbow areas, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if the whole yarn could be like that? But I really like this yarn. I've used it a lot now, this Stylecraft more, and I don't know, it's become one of my favourites. So there we are. There it is in the berry colour and in the rainbow colour. So yeah, been busy making hats. So I think if you wanted to make it for a child, it would be much really easy just to miss off one of the last increase rounds, and it would make it sort of like teenage, like large child teenage size. So I think that would be really easy to do. Anyway, thank you for watching. Stay safe, everyone. Take care. And as I said, watch out for the curly whirly tutorial coming soon. Bye for now.